Welcome back to Saca Las Velitas podcast, episode 16.
16, finally. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, finally. So, for for this spooky season, what we're gonna do is we're gonna have segments where we talk about local spooky areas, local spooky houses, parks, or whatever we could find, boats, everything, in the Sacramento area. So today's topic is gonna be the
Dorothea Puente, murderer.
Yeah. So, for those of you that don't know who Dorothea Puente was, can you let them know a little bit who she was?
Yes. So she's originally from San Bernardino County.
Mm-hmm.
So she's from the South. She is a Capricorn.
Mm-hmm.
She was born January 9th, 1929.
Yeah.
She relocated to Sacramento because she wanted to become a caregiver.
Yeah.
It was like a hustle for her. She was just into being with getting easy money. She looked like a sweet little old lady.
Yeah.
At the time that everything happened or transpired, she was 59 years old.
Yeah.
So you can imagine what she would look like, white lady. And when she got remarried, that's when she was born Dorothea Gray. And then when she married, she took her husband's last name, which was Puente. And then, that's how she became Dorothea Puente. And she relocated to Sacramento.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was gonna mention because a lot of people always wonder like how she ended up with the last name Puente, and it was through marriage, through her one of her ex-husbands.
Yes.
She actually had multiple husbands throughout her life, and then one thing too I wanted to point out about her is she wasn't actually that old, but she fixed herself to make herself look older than what she was, so that people would trust her even more.
Yeah.
So like, cause when people find out that she was only 59 during that time, they're like, what? She looked like she was 79, like she older.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was pretty clever, pretty premeditated. You know what I mean?
No, for sure. A lot of people, after the fact, her upbringing was pretty traumatic. So she grew up without parents. Her parents did pass away really early on. Yeah. So she was in and out of orphanages. She ended up being a prostitute for a little bit too. She was in and out of jail for fraud. You kind of put that into perspective, and you kind of see why she was the way she was. She was always on survival mode.
Yeah, that's true. And then she actually I think she did like 3 years prison before she ended up in that house, the famous house, right?
Yeah.
The famous boarding house.
Yes.
I remember, growing up, we lived in downtown Sacramento for a little bit, so I remember the house. Obviously before it got famous.
Right.
But I remember that little area right there, that little neighborhood. There was a little back in the day whenever you had a camera, you would have to it would have film to where whenever you took pictures, you would go and take the film and go get it developed and get the pictures from back then it was just your local pharmacy. Now it's like Walgreens and stuff that does that, but back in those days it was just like whatever whatever the local pharmacy was,
Right.
But I remember going to that little area with like my tias and then my mom. They would go get their film developed. So that's how I knew that area. I didn't know the house yet because she hadn't got caught yet. Mm-hmm. But I knew that little area right there in downtown.
Yeah.
Have you been to it since it became like famous? The tourist spot.
Yeah. So we're obviously really into spooky stuff. Hence the table.
Yeah.
Which we're gonna talk about that in a little bit too. But yeah, I have gone. I've taken my girls just to go and look around for spooky season a couple years back, and it's interesting because the new owners have it they own it, but they are not able to break it down because it's a part of history. So by law they cannot tear anything down. Yeah,
I think they deemed it like I forgot. I think it's called a historical monument or something like that. Mm-hmm. So it's protected by by the county, by the city, by the government, basically. Yeah. Because it's a historic place, so nobody could break it down. But yeah, I think it's an elder couple that lives there now.
Yeah, it's an older woman and gentleman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's actually a pretty popular local tourist spot here. I even have a couple years back, I had a friend that came out here from Vegas, and she had never been to Sacramento, and she knew about it. She was like, hey, when I'm in Vegas and when I'm in Sac, I want to go check out the Dorothea house. And I'm like, oh yeah, for sure. You know, like us, being local is like, we forget that it's a popular spot, or that it's a tourist spot,
Right.
But people that aren't from here, they a lot of times they'll come out here just to visit that house.
Right, and going back to have I gone to visit it, one of the reasons why I went is because I was really into ghost adventures.
Oh yeah.
Zach Bagans and the whole show.
Yeah.
And one of the episodes they did a Dorothea Puente ghost adventure.
Oh,
so
tight.
When they brought it back to light, I'm like, oh my goodness, I want to go. So it's a really good episode. They did get some good movement, so check that out. I don't know the episode. I should have researched it, but it's on Ghost Adventures.
Cool. Yeah, I'll try to look it up and I'll try to post it up here for you guys to check it out. I know I definitely got to check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. A lot of times when you pull up to that house, there's always people in front of it taking pictures of it.
Yes.
Like pretty much if you as soon as and the house is so popular that like for example me, whenever I'm like scrolling on my timeline like on Instagram or whatever, and as soon as the house pops up, it's so unique that I immediately know the house.
Yeah.
They also have like a figure in the front. They have like a mannequin, right?
Yes.
Like a figure,
Yes.
like a figurine out in the front too. So that's another thing too that gives it away.
Yeah, it's of Dorothea and the detective of the case.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah.
And it looks spooky, and it's crazy because like the owners have a sense of humor.
Yeah, they do.
Because outside, and it's not like we're glorifying a murder, but it's interesting to learn about it. There's a sign saying trespassers will get drugged and buried in the yard.
Yeah.
Which is, it's messed up because that's what actually happened to people.
Yeah.
But, they have a dark sense of humor. And then it's for, like, the people that come to see it and are into it. They see it and they're like, oh, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, speaking of that, so that was one of the things, we forgot to mention that in the beginning. Well, basically what she was doing is, allegedly she was drugging the tenants that she was supposed to be taking care of. And, when they would be unalived, she would bury them on the property. There's like a big area on the side of it where, it's basically dirt. It's basically the lawn, So she was burying them there. And then still collecting their Social Security checks, and she was cashing them out.
Yeah.
So she was basically, that was she was making money off of them, nobody knew that they were passed away. So finally, the families of the victims started wondering, like, oh, you know what? I haven't heard of my dad, or I haven't heard of my mom, my elderly mom and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So then they started wondering, and then when the FBI and stuff, caught wind that the one thing that all these people had in common is that they all were staying there. And that was the last place that they were seen. That's how basically she got caught.
Yeah, one of the main victims that basically popped off the entire investigation was Bert Montoya.
Yeah, Montoya. Yeah.
And he was a huge guy.
Yeah.
Compared to little Dorothea, it's like he was a big guy. He was, mind you, all of the victims did have a disability.
Yeah.
And most of them were homeless. Most of them were didn't have family that cared about them, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And this one in particular, Bert, he was the one that was, his parents took care of him. I forgot what state he was from, but he was not from California. So he made his way down all the way down here, and his parents never knew what happened to him. Yeah. So he basically got into the system of, disabilities, and he was getting his Social Security check, but his parents never knew. So they never had that. They thought he was dead or whatever. But when Dorothea took him in, she took care of him, and soon after, gave them. Well, do you remember the drug that she would give them?
I can't remember the drug right now, but I know that she would mix it with alcohol.
Yeah. So it was some kind of sleeping medication, and you mix that with alcohol, and it's it's poisonous. Yeah.
So basically, her giving the patients alcohol was what kind of raised the red flag. To one of the sons of one of the parents. Mm-hmm. He went to go visit his mom, his elderly mom there, and she was drinking alcohol, right? So he's like, wait, my mom doesn't even drink. So he's like, hey, mom, what are you drinking? And then she was like, oh, it's just, something that Dorothea made. So then he was like, okay, so to him, it was a little weird because, the mom didn't drink like that. And then next thing you know, when the mom ends up missing, that's what he remembered. Like, oh, okay, well, it was a little weird that she was drinking alcohol when, supposedly alcohol when the last time he seen her,
Yeah. And about that one too.
Yeah.
So this one, she was not it was ruled suicide.
Oh yeah.
So it was the son was her husband was going through something, and then she decided to move in with Dorothea because she didn't want to live alone. And then when the son would come and visit her on the daily, he would see that her body was like deteriorating.
Yeah.
And little by little, he was like, oh, it's because maybe she's going through it because her husband was fighting cancer. And, he didn't think much of it. It was just, seeing her kind of deteriorate. He was like, something's wrong, but it had to be with either depression or something else.
Yeah.
So like he said that the son noticed her drinking. Then that's when he was like, okay, maybe it's because it calms her nerves or her stress levels. So he didn't think much of it.
Yeah.
So I think it was 2 days later, his brother gave him a call and was like, hey, mom passed away, and they ruled it a suicide. So after everything came out that Dorothea did to all her other patients, because she wasn't a patient, she wasn't sick, she was just bad place, bad time.
Yeah.
Then they were like, okay, now we got to go back to this case because it was similar how she took out everybody else.
Yeah.
And then that's what happened.
Yeah, and I think it was pretty interesting how the day that they started undigging the bodies, it was on 11/11.
Yes.
And it was actually in 11/11, which is November 11th, 1988. So it was my birthday month, So it was like 5 days before my birthday in November. So that was pretty interesting. That really caught my attention when they said that it was on 11/11, 1988.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I was thinking, yeah, of course it would be Scorpio season when they find out, what I'm saying?
Right.
They find all these unalive bodies in the yard.
Right. So in total, they found 7 bodies.
Yeah.
She only got prosecuted for 3,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But the total of number of people that she had unalived was 9.
Yeah, 9, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and out of those 9, one of them was this guy that she was talking to when she was locked up, when she was doing prison time before that. So basically, when she was doing prison time, she met a pen pal. So her and this guy would ride back and forth. So when she got out of prison, out of women's prison, he's the one that picked her up and everything. He brought her to Sacramento, and then shortly after that, that guy went missing, and then they found him in the Sacramento River in a what they said was allegedly a handmade coffin.
Yeah.
On the side of the river. So, at the moment, they didn't know who he was. But then after, the whole Dorothea thing came out, after she got caught and everything, they started, looking at people that she was close to or that she ever had contact with. And then so they were able to be, after she got caught, they were able to, connect her back to that guy. And they kind of like pinned her to that murder too,
Yeah. And it's like a bizarre story because it's like you see her and of course like she wasn't that old.
Yeah.
But everything was pre-calculated.
Yep.
And it's like you have to put in perspective her upbringing and why people turn out the way they do. But she literally did not care.
Yeah.
She was in survival mode. I feel like they describe her as pure evil, and she was a survivalist.
Yeah.
So these people had to go. Like it wasn't an option for her.
Yeah.
Like that was what she was supposed to do to them.
I just wanted to shout out our sponsor, DZ Dolls, who made us this Sam right here from Trick or Treat. It's pretty huge. As you can see the Oogie Boogie right there. So the Sam is actually bigger than him. I went to the Spirit Halloween store and I saw a bunch of Sam items. They look pretty cool and everything. But it's good to know that this one right here was handmade especially for us. So handmade is always better. I did buy the Oogie Boogie from the store, from the Spirit Halloween store, specifically for our podcast right here. But, again, shout out to DZ Dolls for making us this Sam and also for making us the little mystery back here.
And the little devil too.
Oh, yeah, he also made us this little devil right here. So make sure you guys go follow him on IG, DZ Dolls.
How cool is this? Look at, like, of course you could go to the store and buy one, but it's nothing beats homemade, handmade. Yes. This is freaking amazing.
Yes, facts.
Like
facts.
Just a yarn just turns into that.
Yeah, so make sure you guys go follow him at DZ Dolls on IG.
Yes. And the detectives that were pulling everybody out, there was one body that did not have a head, legs, and hands.
Damn.
And to this day, they never located those parts, but they were able to identify the woman. And fortunately, the 7 people that were dug up, they did have a proper burial, even though everybody was against the detectives saying, no, this is going to be a hard one. You guys are never going to figure out this puzzle. But everybody got a proper
burial.
A burial. And that was like the closure of the families that that the best they can do.
Yeah, and you know, it's crazy because during all this time when this happened, our family lived really close to where the area was, to where the actual house was, where all this was happening. Even today, before we recorded this episode, I told my mom that we're gonna record, that we're gonna talk about Dorothea Puente. And I asked her, I was like, oh, you know, do you remember, like, you know, in the 80s, like when this happened? And she goes, oh yeah, she goes, I remember that story. Like it was all over the news. It was pretty crazy. So even our mom remembers that, you know.
Yeah.
So that's pretty wild.
It's pretty crazy. If you guys can like do your own, like look up the documentaries, it's a really good one. It's a really sad one.
Another one of my experiences regarding that house, when I was in college, my friend lived like 2 doors down from the house.
Oh wow.
During the time where he lived there, the house was abandoned, like nobody lived there. And he was like, hey, he's like, you know what house that is? And I was like, oh, you know, what house? Because it was the corner house, like pretty much almost the corner. And then he was like, oh, it's, you know, it's the old lady that you know, that unalived all these people. And I was like, oh, what? That's the house, because it looked different at that time. It was just pretty much closed off, like nobody could go, you know, nobody could go on the other side of the fence. It was right before the current owners bought it. But that was pretty crazy, you know. But like I said, for people that are, you know, that live in the area, you know, we're so used to seeing that house. And then even myself, I used to live downtown too. During that time when that friend lived 2 doors down from the Dorothea house, I lived also downtown, and I was actually gonna move in with them, you know, because you know we're all in college, you know, so we're all trying to be roommates and stuff. But I actually ended up not moving in there. But yeah, it's crazy that he lived like two doors down from there.
Yeah, and it's crazy because the house still has the original flooring.
Yeah.
Of in the entire house. I think the only thing that they broke down was a wall divider from like the kitchen and in the living room. But everything is original. So all the bodies that were, you know, unalive there, they that's where their energy is still at. You know? But yeah.
Yeah, the energy is definitely strong there. You know, now, you know, like they painted it and everything. They and you know, like how you said earlier, how the new owners, you know, they're very lighthearted, you know. They have a good sense of humor. So when you walk up there and you read all the stuff that they have out there, it actually kind of makes you smile or laugh a little bit. But you know, when you think back to like what actually happened there, it's pretty wild, man. It's pretty wild.
It's crazy. And even now, like they're saying that she had to have someone help her.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
That's like a huge mystery because it's like, hopefully we'll be able to post a picture of her. Yeah. But she's, you know, Bert was huge. I'm going to go back to Bert because a lot of the documentaries focus on him because it's like, he was like a big, like a gentle giant, they described him as. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you know, dead weight is even more heavier and it's like someone had to help her. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. That's another one of the huge mysteries about that case is that they're like, how did she herself, you know, because there's stairs. So the house, I think, has, 2 floors.
Yes.
So there's stairs that she has to, you know, go up and down, carry these bodies down, carry them to the backyard, you know, dig out all that dirt fast enough before anybody sees her. So, yeah. So they're like, okay, so who helped her, you know? Right. That's one of the huge mysteries that has never been solved.
And the frustrating part of the case, too, is that she never admitted that she did it.
Yeah, that too.
She died with that, all the secrets, all the truth, she took it with her. Yeah, never admitted.
Yeah, because basically what she said was that the people were already older and that they passed away on their own. Mm-hmm. And all she did was just cash their checks. That's, you know, that was her defense, you know? Yeah. But yeah, so she basically just tried to play it off. But, you know, it's crazy because, you know, given her history, she actually did time for fraud, like basically for the exact same thing without the, you know, the burial of the bodies. But she basically did I think like 3 years for almost the exact same thing without the bodies, you know?
And she was actually in violation of parole.
Yeah, like, that too.
Because of this doing the same thing. Yeah. And that's what she says is that's the only thing that she's guilty of. Yeah. But she's not guilty of murder.
Yeah, because I think on her parole, like they specifically told her that she couldn't run a boarding house. Right. And that's exactly what she was doing.
Yeah, she came right back.
Yeah, and I think she was doing it for like 3 years before they even caught on. You know, what got their attention was obviously the missing people. Right. So then when they started looking into it, they're like, oh, she's not even supposed to be working there at all, you know? Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was pretty wild, man. But yeah, like I said, you know, a lot of people come to Sacramento specifically for that. Like, you know, people that are like that are into like, you know, a lot of horror and like haunted spots. Mm-hmm. They'll come to Sac specifically for that. Yeah. And then just a side note, this is a side note. A lot of people don't know this, but Sacramento is actually the capital of California. So the state capital is a few miles down from where the Dorothea house is.
Which I believe the Dorothea Puente house is located on 1429 F Street.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
Midtown.
And the capital's like what
Capitol Mall, it's like what, not even 2 miles from there?
Yeah, I think it because Capitol Mall turns into I think M Street.
Yes.
Yeah, so from M Street to F Street.
Yeah.
So that's how close it is to the state capitol.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think that she was a Capricorn, because Capricorns, they're very money motivated. So that part of it, being money motivated and motivated by money, it explains why she was willing to go through these extremes allegedly, for money, for money reasons. And then speaking of the Capricorn, the Capricorn card is actually represented by the Diablito, by the devil in the tarot card, So that also, that's a little side note, on the spiritual side. Mm-hmm. Speaking of alcoholic beverages, this one's not mixed with poison, but it's very refreshing because it's been hot, man. It was hot today.
Super hot.
So I'm gonna try to cool off a little bit.
So we just mentioned that she was a Capricorn, mm-hmm. and that they are very money motivated. They're hustlers. Yeah. They gonna figure it out one way or another. They want to succeed. Yeah. It's a need for them. So a lot of people don't want to believe in zodiac signs, but I really do, because it's to the T.
Yeah.
She had a lot of greed, and greed turns to evil, and that's exactly who she was. They're also really workaholics. So another thing, it makes money. They're just off top. Greedy. Yeah. If that's the best way to describe.
Yeah, and then so another fact that I wanted to point out was that her trial mm-hmm. for that specific case, because remember she did time before, so she's been in and out of prison, so for that specific trial, the one that the famous one that has to do with the house. That trial was in Salinas, California.
Yes, it was.
So Salinas, for those of you that have been watching this for a long time, I actually lived in Salinas for a little bit. I don't know what part, I don't know what area, don't ask me none of that. All I know is when I came from Mexico, one of the places that we stopped at was Salinas. We actually lived in Salinas for a few months when I was little. So when they said that her trial was in Salinas, and I was like, oh, damn, that's crazy, because when, during the 80s, on the way to Sacramento, we actually stopped in Salinas. We were there for a while, and then we came to Sacramento. So to find out as an adult that Dorothea Puente, her trial had to be done in Salinas, I was like, oh, okay, I figured I would point that out on the pod.
Yeah.
And the reason why they did it way out there is because they figured that it was such a huge case. And back in those days, Sacramento was smaller. So her case being so famous, that they were like, no, okay, so it's gonna sway the jury,
Absolutely,
it's gonna make the jury, vote a certain way. So they're like, we need to get her out of Sacramento. So that's why they moved it to Monterey County, and they moved it to Salinas specifically.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a pretty cool note. I was like, I figure I should point that out real quick.
No, yeah, and it's like a conflict of interest, because it's like you said, Sacramento was super small back then.
Yeah.
And it's gonna automatically yep.
Yeah.
Guilty.
So, yeah, exactly. And then, she passed away in March 27, 2011. So she passed away during Aries season.
Yeah.
So, that's pretty crazy because, Aries, they're very, obviously they're a fire sign. So on that aspect, I feel like, Aries, they have a lot of anger to them sometimes, I'm not saying that, Aries is always angry, but I'm saying Aries has that aspect to them, So I feel that for her to pass away during Aries season, that kind of even adds a little more to her image, so that was pretty wild too.
No, yeah, for sure. And going back to some characteristics too that I forgot to mention, they like to be alone.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, that too.
And mind you, her growing up, like I said, that she was in and out of orphanages. And homes, she never had an emotional connection to anyone.
Yeah.
Anyone, any, no mother figure, no father figure, no sister, no nothing to be like, hey cousin, and she had a huge family. She was one of many kids.
Yeah.
And still she never had an emotional connection to anyone.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so I definitely feel that added a lot to it. I feel that, maybe her parents she lived with her parents, but they didn't really take care of her like that. So I feel that her having to look after her own parents made her be like, okay, I'm gonna look after these elderly people, So I feel that helped her, and it was also a curse, It was a curse for the elderly people, because again, she was used to that disconnect. She was easily like, okay, I'll take care of these people. But then she was also when they were off, she was easily like, okay, I'm gonna just go ahead and bury them in the backyard.
Yeah, como si nada. Like no tenía, she didn't have any remorse.
Yeah,
that's another thing that they said in the trial. She did not show any emotion to anything.
Yeah,
she did not care. But
yeah. But yeah, that was a good one though, for sure. That was a good one. There's a lot of other details, that go along with the case.
Yeah.
We just wanted to kind of like to mention those just because, for people that, never been to SAC, but they're into like horror stories and stuff like that, we figured that would be a good one,
Yeah.
Especially, like I said, a lot of people that they're not from SAC, they never even heard of SAC. They come out here just for the Dorothea Puente house,
Yeah.
So I figured that was a good one for us to talk about.
Yeah. And I would mention when people do come, they're not allowed to go in the house.
Oh, yeah.
So you just see everything from the outside, and it's a quick little, it's like a normal house, like a normal 2-story house. So it's not a huge experience, but you see the outside.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you ever see anybody that has posted that house, it's usually from outside the gate. Sometimes you'll see the owners, like I said, the owners, they know what house they bought, so they know that there's always people outside the gate and everything. So they have like funny signs. They even have a sign that says the house is the one next door, and it's pointing to the one on the side.
That's true.
Yeah. So like so they're trying to confuse people. Like, well, but again, if you have a sense of humor, then you'll understand why they do that.
Yeah.
But yeah. If you guys ever do come to Sacramento to take pictures with that house, just know that all the pictures that you can take are from outside the house. outside the gate. But it's still a good experience though. Like I said, a lot of people travel here just for that, just for that.
And there's also another quote on the house that the owners put, which I don't remember verbatim, but it says something like, that old lady did those awful, awful things, not me. And then on the bottom it says the house.
Oh yeah.
Like I said, it's not word for word, but it's something similar to that.
Yeah.
So that one was like, oh, because a lot of people see that house like with hatred or like with evil, and it's like it's not the house, it was the person, But yeah. That
house is located in downtown Sacramento.
Yeah.
Regarding downtown Sacramento, since I used to live in downtown Sacramento, I could tell you guys that there's definitely a lot of energy because the houses there are so old. So just downtown in general has a lot of energy regarding, spirits, regarding death, regarding all that is because the houses there are so old that, so many people have died in the homes, whether it's a peaceful death, somebody just died in their sleep or, a little more, crazier than that. But just downtown in general has a lot of energy, a lot of spiritual energy.
Yeah.
And some of the previous episodes that we've done on here, I mentioned like some of my experiences of when I lived downtown, and it has to do with just the house being so old and downtown in general, having a lot of history. So that right there, downtown Sacramento, that's where the Dorothea house is, so you can just imagine,
Yeah. And like we're going to keep talking about other haunted places here in Sac, and just down the street from there, in Old Sacramento, there's another spot that we're gonna talk about. That's super haunted. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so we're gonna try to from now till Halloween, we're gonna try to bring you guys some more haunted spots, specifically here in Sac. But we might bring some closer. Like I have this one in mind that I'm not gonna mention it here, but it's about 2 hours away from here that I actually personally been to, and I think you've been to that one too. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna give you guys an episode on that one too, and also shout out our other sponsor, Scorpion Tarot. So whenever you want to go check out any of these haunted spots, make sure that after you go there, make sure you sage yourself. So if you do need some sage, make sure you guys hit up Scorpion Tarot on IG and TikTok. He's the plug for the sage, the Palo Santo, and the protection candles. All right, guys. So make sure you guys check out next week's episode. We're gonna be shouting out haunted spots here in Sac. So make sure you guys follow both of us, Erica Tinez
and Saca las Velitas. All right, peace.